Hey students, welcome to This Week in Ag Finance. Now what we're doing in this week is still talking about a cash flow budget. And in fact, right here beside me, I've got a cash flow budget that is very similar to your last week's homework. Now in your last week's homework, you had a video that went over the process, which kind of gave you the answers. And then your job was to build an Excel spreadsheet that actually matched that and how you do the formulas, again, things I outlined in the video. Now we've done that cash flow last week, but what I want to do is carry that into this week and do a second cash flow. Except this cash flow is where you have taken all of your estimates, you've run them through, you've created the cash flow budget, and in our last example, we had enough money to run this. It looked like it was going to positively cash flow from quarter 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And so that's what we did last week. This week, what we're going to do is revisit our cash flow and kind of dive into it a little bit deeper, the info part especially, and find things that just didn't really make sense and in fact make some changes. We've looked at the market. We've also talked to other folks about how we might get this done, and we've kind of looked a little deeper at our cash flow budget and found some things we want to change. So what I've got for you this week is a homework, and in that homework it will be this file that I'm going to show you. Now I've worked this file out, so once again I'll show you what the answers are going to lead to be, and then you're going to have to recreate the work in your own Excel file. Now last week the Excel file you did has got formulas and you've worked it, so you might take my changes and make them in your file, and that would automatically update, and then you might look at your answers. You do want to make sure your formulas are right, so you could either use last week's homework, make the changes in the info part, and that would flow through, or you can take this homework that I'm going to give you that's got the changes here in the info and then redo the other pages. Kind of up to you. Depends on how you want to proceed. Really, this homework is about how formulas can change, like info can change, and how does that automatically update through the sheet. If you've already done your work, that would be the fastest way to go. Make the changes in the info sheet that I've got here for you, and that way it automatically update. And check your work to make sure it looks right. That would be kind of what this week's assignment is. How do you take a cash flow budget you've already done and make changes to the info because you figured out new things that need to be made? The info is not right. We got to update this stuff, and then how that automatically flows through. So that's kind of what this week is all about. My video here, I want to go through here and show you what changed, a little bit of why, and that way maybe when you make these changes, they'll make more sense. Let's take a look. All right, right here to the side, I'll get out of the way, we've got some changes. The first change that I looked at really closely was what we're going to sell in volume. So I kind of updated this. Really, we were looking at in the first quarter not selling anything, but actually on average our purchase is 750, but we're going to buy 60 head, and by the time we get to the end of that first quarter, I'm going to say we can go ahead and sell 26 of them. That's 25,000 pounds worth of product that we're allowed to sell right away, which will help us. Now, one thing that we did is we kept looking at this across all the quarters. I was looking at everything from a per pound standpoint, but I started calculating the heads and I found something here. We were actually buying an amount, in this case it's 412 head, and in the last projections, we were selling more than that. That was a mistake. Really, I started looking at the head and I could see that we actually really end up with a little bit of a loss here. In other words, we buy 412 head of animals and we're going to take care of them and sell them. They're not all going to live. We're going to probably lose some. So I've actually looked at a new stocking rate here of selling, and we're going to sell 401 head. That means that's a 3% loss. So what's changed on you is the volume here of your sell and the volume of your buy. We got that kind of cleaner, and that looks like that's going to be fixed up. We also have a capacity thing here where we start off low, we build up, and then we kind of work our way through those cattle and get them sold. Some of them aren't going to make it, and that's that 3% loss I've got figured into here. But what changes is these quantities, and that will change your cost. Now, if you come down here, I also looked at our price change. We're going to buy the right kind of calves, and if that's 750 weight, we may have to pay more like $1.45. We get them this 950, they're worth more like fat cattle at $1.10, and those are my estimates. I left that the same, but I did update the cost, so that changes as well. All right, the feed cost also changed on pounds of gain, and so I looked at the pounds of gain across these months based on our heads, and that changed as well. So those variables are all highlighted because they are new numbers that you can update in your previous sheet, and they should flow all the way through to update the rest. All right. Also, a little bit of our assets and the money we had to pay. We had to pay a little more down, means we had to borrow a little bit different money. So those things changed. Because that loan changed, it actually changed our principal and interest payments. And then we still have the same $191,000 investor cash. Here is the question in your homework. Is the beginning cash of $50,000 enough to get this done? All of these things have changed. Our investor cash is not going to change. My question to you is $50,000 enough cash on hand to make it? And the homework will also talk about, is that enough cash on hand? How much should that be? And we also want to make sure we have enough cash every quarter to operate with a cushion. And that cushion will be an amount of money you need to have at the end of each quarter. And so that's going to be what the homework's going to ask you, is to answer those two questions and make the changes, get the Excel file up to date correctly so that you can get the cash flow to work out. Now, all of these changes I just listed are what you're going to make the changes to your previous homework. And then they should update all the way through if you wrote your formulas correctly. Now, I'm going to go ahead and look at my revenue and expense sheet. That's going to give me sales in quarter one, which I didn't have before. I've also got more expenses in quarter one. And then you're going to go all the way through in quarter four. It's got some sales and some expenses as well, which we didn't have before. And so all of these things have updated. Remember, this $50,000 is what our question is that the right amount? Well, now that we've made these updates and I checked these in mine, you could check yours. Now I have the cash flow and you can see what happens. In quarter one, we start off with that $50,000. That is our question. What does that need to be? Well, we go through quarter one and we're all good to go. $68,000 left. That rolls over to the next quarter. Got some more sales. Everything's looking good, except we can see that our net cash from operations is starting to drop, but we still have enough money, so no problem. Roll to quarter three. That's when we really brought in a lot more cattle, and we go through here and we end up with some sales that are a little bit less than last quarter. We can see that our purchases have gone up, and we now have ourselves a negative net cash, so that's not enough money. That negative rolls to the next quarter and we end up short again, even more, and now we're even more in the hole from the operations. We're even more in the hole, and now we come over here and you can see that $114,000 negative will not work. So that $50,000 is not enough to get this going. What does it need to be? Well, let's just say that our minimum cash flow we want every quarter is $10,000. I need $10,000 in the bank to make this work. So I'm going to start looking at what I'm going to need. I'm going to need a lot more money than this. I'm going to go over here to $50,000, and if you doubled, if you add another $100,000 to that, that means we need to start off with $150,000. Ooh, that's a lot. $150,000. And that $150,000 will flow over into the cash flow, and it gets you, except the last quarter, it doesn't quite make it. We still need more money. So I'm going to have to go to the info sheet. I'm going to have to bump this up to 100, and that was 15. So 100, let's say 70,000 to get me going. Nope, I'm going to need more than that. 180,000 possibly to get me going. I jump to my cash flow, and that actually does it. You could actually start off with a little bit less than that. That actually gets you through this period of time. So that is the homework, is to really see, number one, how do you handle these changes? Your formula should help you with that. And the question is, how much cash flow do you need to maintain a $10,000 ending quarter balance if you're going to get this done? And when we flow all the way through, it's going to take quite a bit more money than we started with. So unless investors are willing to give more, we're going to have to come up with more money to begin this business. All right, cash flow budgets are a dynamic tool. And so that part is something you're going to have to learn to change formulas and update information. And so using what you did last week, bring it over to this week and get started. I've also got an Excel file for you here that you could begin with as well. And that Excel file is this one. It's the same file you just saw a while ago, except everything is empty. That's the work you've got to do. Hopefully you can use your last week's file to get you going. But that is the assignment of this week. Take this updated info sheet, redo the cash flow budget, and look at how much cash on hand is needed to get going. And then do the work yourself and submit that file by the homework date. Thanks.